Welcome class. Today we'll be talking about variation as a topic in maths. You'll find this topic first in your GSS3 and likewise introduced again in SS1. And most times when you check through jam past questions, you'll find them there. They're always there. What do we mean by variation? First, because I told you initially, if you understand why you're learning a topic, it will be easier for you to actually absorb it. Let me give you an instance before we go into this topic first. Let's say, if for instance, let's say 5 oranges cost, let's say 400 naira. What comes to the average mind is this. You want to know the cost of one. 5 oranges cost 500 naira. The first thing that comes to any average mind is, what's the cost of one? That becomes the case of 1 orange becomes how much? 1 orange equal to 400 divided by 5, which will give us about 80 naira. Agree? Okay. Now, there's a relationship between the quantity of oranges and the cost. The more you buy, the more you pay. If you decide to say, okay, 1 orange costs 80 naira, so what's the cost of 10 oranges? That's easy. It becomes what? 10 times what? 80, and that should give us about what? 800 naira. If you decide and say, okay, what's the cost of 2 oranges? 2 oranges becomes 2 times what? 80, which will give us about 160. What I'm pointing out here is this. The higher you want in quantity, the higher you pay. You reduce it, the lesser you get. But in some situation, maybe probably they could ask you, okay, I want about 2.5 oranges. I don't think this is going to be possible. This is not actualizable. You cannot request for 2.5 oranges. Nobody sells that to you. So for this case, there's no relationship between fractional quantity. Take note of this, because you might want to think like, okay, what about 5.5 oranges? What about 8.5 oranges? Oranges won't be split into 2 for you to buy. Now, what I'm trying to now point out is this. There are relationships where you call them direct. The higher you want, the higher you pay. And there are also some relationships that the higher you put in, the lesser you get. Let's look at this situation. Let's say, for instance, we have about 10 men can do or eat a bag of rice in 12 days. 10 men can eat a bag of rice in 10 days. So how long will it take one man to eat that bag of rice? Is it going to be lesser or higher? Naturally, it should be what? Higher. What 10 men will eat, not being incapacitated, they're actually in the right state of mind. What 10 men will eat in 12 days, I can tell you that one man will eat it in 10 times 12 days, which is about 120 days. Yes, true. Then if you come out and say, okay, how many days will it take 24 men to do the bag of rice that 10 men can eat? It has to be 120. The number of days that one man will eat divided by 24. So if you look at this will give us about 5 days. And if you decide, okay, how long will it take 5 men to do the same job that 10 men did? They will still take longer days. That becomes 120 divided by about 5, which will give us about 24 days. These things are done in ratios. Relationship can either be direct or inverse. Look at another case of the speed of a car. When you increase the speed of a car, you reduce the time of getting to your location. If you reduce the speed of a car, you automatically increase the time of getting to your destination. So this kind of relationship that is direct, that the more you put, the more you get, is called a direct proportion. Because I will be linking proportion and variation together. Why this other one here? The more you put, the lesser you get. The job that 10 men will do in probably 2 days is going to take longer for one single person to do it. So this one is called the indirect proportion, because relationship between quantities must have one of these two. Is either they are direct or inverse. Now, have it in mind. Remember, we'll be talking about relationship between items. Under variation, you're going to come across 4 of them. The direct variation. And mind you, there's a symbol they use for variation when it comes to that mathematics. That symbol looks like the alpha letter, the Greek alphabet. A, alpha. This is this here. We use that Greek alphabet, alpha, so take note of it. When you see me use alpha, know that I'm referring to variation. You meet direct variation, you meet the inverse variation. Inverse variation is still the same as this, indirect, inverse, indirect. Inverse variation, you meet the joint variation, and you're going to meet the partial variation. Okay. Now, the first one I'll be talking about will be the direct variation. Direct. Now, direct is the same as this direct proportion. In some jam questions, instead of using x varies directly as, they could use s varies or is directly proportional to. They could use those two words intermittently, so be aware of it. Now, let me remove this one. A varies directly as B. This means A varies directly as B. That's what this thing stands for. Or they could even use an X and this. It still means X varies directly as, let me use X and Y, we can't use X and B. We use X, A and B again, let's use X and Y as Y. Or they could use another language, varies directly with, I'm pointing them out with Y. They could use this varies directly as B, they could use this varies directly with Y. Is that clear? Okay, now let's now see a clear instance. Example of direct variation. So don't be afraid. I guess some of you here, you've watched our video on direct simple equations, simultaneous equations, exponential equations. Majorly, the simple equation really matters in this one. You will need it very much here. Now let us look at this case. If we have x varies directly as y, and x equal to 24 when y equal to 8, they will now ask you questions like this. A, obtain a formula. Obtain a formula for x and y. B, what is x when y equals to, let's say 2 over 2 over 5. And C, find y when x equal to, let's say 6. This way. Hope I'm not going too fast. All right. So, look at a typical direct variation question. Once they state a direct variation expression like this, they'll follow it up with 2 numbers. These 2 numbers are for you to establish a constant. What do you mean by a constant? Recall, I told you from the word go, I said 5 oranges cost how much? I said 5 oranges cost, I think 400 then. And I said the average man will quickly go for the cost of 1. The cost of 1 that you actually establish as 18 naira is a constant. 1 orange equals to what? 18 naira. This is a constant. This is a constant amount. Anybody that wants to buy any amount, if you want to buy 20 quantity, you're going to go through the 18 naira. I said discount is given. If no discount, you have to go through 1 orange is 18 naira. If you want 100 oranges, you got to get 100 times 80. If you want 500 oranges, you have to have 500 times 80. except discount is allowed, which they normally do when you're buying in bulk. So in this case, whenever you're given a direct variation like this, the first thing you must do is to establish a constant. How is this? Watch this. Very simple. You know your simple equations. Watch this. Solution. We're going to have x varies less y. We cannot solve with a variation sign, so we must remove the variation sign and introduce an equal to. How do we introduce an equal to? This becomes x equal to ky. Now, remember, you just can't put in a parameter without indicating what the parameter is for. So where k is constant, I actually like to use the word k, the letter k, because it sounds like constant. But I'll tell you, you can use any alphabet to represent your constant. Any alphabet that is not the true first initial given one. If you're given x and y, you cannot use x and y as constant. You can use a, b, c, d, e, f, g, h, and the rest. But you cannot use x and y for constant. So I prefer to use k, because k sounds like constant. So now that you have a constant, the first two numbers given to you, just like the case of 5 oranges cost 400 naira, that you can guys, oranges cost 400 naira. So, well, when you say 500 oranges cost 400 naira, you start calculating what's the cost of one. So in the case of this 1 to 2, x is what? 24. When y is what? 8. So you have this as 24 equals to 8k. What do you do when you get to this part of the simple equation? Remember, you divide both sides by what? 8. So that means that this is 24 divided by 8 equals to constant, and your 3 is your constant. Now that you've established a constant, if you have this constant, this question they ask here, obtain a formula. Sometimes they will tell you, obtain a relationship. Take note. They could change this word as obtain a relationship for the two given expressions, for the two given unknown that are related. X varies directly as y. You've gotten your constant. They will tell you obtain a formula. And if they don't tell you to obtain a formula, you must obtain a formula. You want to know why? 5 oranges cost 400 naira. Even if you decide not to reason, somebody says 5 oranges cost 400 naira. And you refuse to calculate, 5 oranges, 400 naira. If you don't do it, the first thing remains that you just let the question, the statement hanging. There are some statements that come with logical conclusions. 5 oranges, 400 naira carries a logical conclusion. So it is best you establish a relationship, which you can use to determine, even if you're sending someone out to get more oranges, okay, at least they sell one for 18 naira. So I should be able to get so amount with this amount of money. So the relationship here, after getting your constant, is very important. If they state this, obtain a formula or obtain a relationship for x and y, fine. It becomes a question which they will mark as an answer. But if they don't state it, because most times JAMB will not state this, they will not tell you to look for formula. You must look for the formula. Because once they state the variation parameters like this, they will give you the first two numbers. Those first two numbers are for your constant. Do not forget, use any alphabet other than the what? X and Y given. So let's go over here. Let's get our relationship quickly without wasting time. So for solution A, they said formula. What's the formula? Formula, this is how you get your formula. See, at this point where you introduce your constant, go and carry this expression and write it as formula x equal to 3y. You put the 3 here, this 3, this constant that you have. I'm going to place it here. So you have this. So this becomes the formula or relationship between x and y. So for every 24x, you get 8y. Is that clear? So with this, we can answer question B. Question B now comes like, find x when y is 2 number 2 over 5. So you can come here and say, okay, when y equals to 2 number 2 over 5, go and carry that relationship. X equals to 3y, which is the relationship. So now what you're going to do is to now what? Substitute this number with y. X equals to 3 times y now becomes 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12. This is 12 over what? 5. So x will give us 36 over 5. So x equal to what? 7 whole number 1 over 5 as your answer. Simple as that. Then for the C question, they say find y when x is 6. You come back again and do the same thing. When x equal to 6, when x equal to 6, go back to the relationship, x equals to 3y. Is that so? What do? Carry this 6 and place here. This becomes 6 equals to 3y. Divide both sides, 2 will give us y as your answer. So the variation you're seeing here is very simple. Having your simple equations knowledge at hand, it comes very easy.